Hey guys, it's Elise and welcome back to My Cupcake Addiction. Today, we're finding Dory and then we're eating her. Sorry, Dory. I'm gonna show you guys how to make a super cute Finding Dory cupcake and also, as an added bonus, a Nemo cookie pop. It's a super easy technique that I'm sharing with you today that you can use to basically replicate any picture, character, or drawing that you wanna get just perfect. The things that I'm using for my Nemo and Dory treats today, I've got some Oreo cookies, or you can use your favorite chocolate sandwich cookie. I've got a cupcake to decorate and some Forrero Rochers. I've also got a tiny jar of Nutella, because many things make me happy, a little bit of white fondant, a green Twizzler. I've got some of my perfectly pipeable buttercream frosting. I've got some in purple and some in blue. The blue's in a piping bag with just a small round open piping tip. The purple we're just gonna use a zip seal bag on. I've got a little melted white chocolate, some chocolate candy rocks, some unmelted candy melts in green and yellow. I've got some edible markers in a ton of different colors. I've got blue, yellow, brown, orange, and black, and then a slightly darker blue, some Lollipop sticks, and I've got a kid's dark colored coloring pencil. Make sure you're using a non-toxic pencil. Some corn flour that I can use to roll that fondant out with, and I've got a small picture which I'm using as a guide for colors and patterns today. And then these little teeny tiny printables. I've sized these so they're the perfect size for an Oreo cookie. You can of course choose your favorites, but I'll leave a link down below to the page that I created with the right size Dory and Nemos. You'll also need a little bit of parchment paper. So this is where we're gonna start the tracing process, which is why I say this is fantastic for any character. I'm just gonna use a black marker and I'm gonna trace around my two characters. I found it easiest here to do the entire body first and then all of the fins and then the eyes and details. Now, some of you guys may remember doing this in kindergarten or in primary school. We're gonna turn it over and you're gonna use your pencil, and I picked a dark color like I said, to just scribble over the back of it. I like to go on the side so I get like a nice even coating. Perfect. You should have something that looks kind of like a grade 1 art project. This is gonna look much better by the time we're done. You wanna roll out your fondant now, really, really nice and thin. I'm gonna put down a little bit of our corn flour, cornstarch, and roll it out using my fondant roller. All right, even my fondant roll today is looking kind of like a kid's art project. This fondant, I would normally tell you to try and keep it away from the air or keep it covered so it doesn't start to set. But this is better to work on if it does start to set. So feel free to walk away and leave that for 10, 15 minutes, or even to roll it out before you do your tracing. Now you want to take the back side of your parchment, so the bit that you scribbled all over with the black pencil, place it down onto the fondant, and then I'm going to use that same pencil to retrace over the pen lines, so I'm effectively transferring that image onto my white fondant. So when we lift that up, we should have a perfect little, very faint outline of both Dory and Nemo. Now I'm going to use my lighter colors and do the lighter accents according to my little picture before I do a black outline so that I don't drag the black through the yellow and the orange. So I'm just going to do Dory's tail and fins and then Nemo's orange bits. So I'm really just doing the orange parts of Nemo and then basically all of the fins of Dory, and then I'm going to outline in my black. Once your outlines are done, you can just add on any of the little lines in the fins and the eyeballs and sort of details. And then I'm just going to finish off Dory. They're slightly different shades of blue. If you have any trouble getting any of these colors, you can also use a food color, either a paste or a food color liquid. Just mix it with either a little bit of decorating alcohol or a little bit of pure lemon extract, because otherwise it won't dry on the fondant. So the alcohol or the lemon extract will just help the color to evaporate a little bit so that it dries. Now, before you do anything here, lift it up. You will have been applying a little bit of pressure and you don't want your fondant sticking to the bench. And then you can take your circle cutter and just place it around your Nemo and your Dory and cut them out. A little twist. Be careful not to touch the pen marks just yet. They won't be set for about 5 or 10 minutes. Now to attach. So I'm going to take a little Nutella and just paint it on everywhere except for the very, very outside edge of my Oreo. I mean, a paintbrush might be a bit of overkill. You could probably just use a spoon. And then on goes either your Dory or your Nemo or whatever character. Just so that I'm being careful about lifting, I'm just gonna slide an offset spatula underneath because I don't really want to push her out of shape. And then on goes Dory onto our first Oreo. Again, being careful not to touch the fresh paint. She's so cute. Let's start with the pop because it's super easy. So I'm gonna take my green Twizzler and I'm just gonna slice. I'm gonna put my scissors in the middle and I'm just gonna slice. You should be able to get like 3 of your little, I kind of thought they looked like little bits of seaweed or little reeds. So count across like 2 of your little Twizzler pieces and cut up. And you should have a nice little thin, kind of a curled, something that resembles seaweed but tastes much better. When you get to the top, I like to just taper it off so it's like really nice and pointy at the top. Take your Nemo Oreo and we're just gonna split it. And I like to just kind of dig out just a little bit of the cream. Leave it in there, just kind of make a little bit of a gap. And then dip your Lollipop stick into your white chocolate and then straight into that little gap. Rest that on the table. And then take about 1/4 teaspoon of white chocolate. This is gonna hold everything together like a glue. The Oreo itself, it's delicious, but it's not quite strong enough to hold all of this together. On goes my little Nemo front. And you wanna let that completely set for about 5 minutes. Once that one's set, you wanna take a little bit of your white chocolate and just place it kind of at intervals along your piece of seaweed, paying careful attention to the top and the bottom. That's kind of where you want the most. Now working quickly, pick that up. I like to let the seaweed kind of come up a little bit so that it's like part of the cookie. And then I'm going to support the top with my thumb while also twisting that Twizzler around the stem or around the lollipop stick. This requires some coordination. When you get to the bottom, you can see I've kind of got my thumb and forefinger up here and then my pinky finger down the bottom, and I'm trying to hold everything together. I'm gonna put a generous amount of that white chocolate on the very, very bottom, and then I'm gonna hold that. I'm going to hold that and support it for about 3 minutes. Yes, if you're doing 100 of these 3 minutes are gonna add up. But what it's gonna do is it's gonna hold the Twizzler in place, and it's also gonna create almost like a permanent curl so that even if it does pull away a little bit at the top or bottom, it still stays curled around our lollipop stick. Finally, I'm gonna add a couple of my little chocolate rocks because they're adorable. So I'm just gonna hold it at the bottom, pick a couple, and use white chocolate just to affix them, kind of in between the Oreo and the little Twizzler. That is your little Nemo pop. You could do that with Nemo, you could do that with Dory, you could do that with any of the characters from either of the movies. Let's move on to our Dory cupcake. For our cupcake, we're gonna start with some blue frosting. So I'm just gonna sort of pipe it in. I don't want it to go over the outside edges of my cupcake case. I wanna keep that really, really nice and clean, but I am just gonna kind of pipe it all over the top. I don't wanna see any cupcake poking through. I'm gonna use the back of a knife to push out, and you can see that by pushing out, I actually get a really nice, neat, flush finish up against the cupcake case, but nothing goes over the outside edge, which is exactly what we want. Now I like to do a specific type of swirl when I'm trying to mimic water. So I've got this small round tip and I'm just gonna pipe really small, low, flat, kind of little circles or dollops. And as I taper off, I kind of give it like, I'm gonna call it a flourish. And that just gives you like almost the illusion of movement. All the way around and on top. Now in the movie, from what I've been able to see, Dory lives in like a brain coral. So these are gonna be our brain coral as well as an absolutely delicious addition into our cupcake. I've got my purple frosting in a snap seal bag. I'm gonna snip off quite a fine tip. Now before I do anything, I kind of wanna cover this just messily so that again, I don't see any of that brown Forrero Rocher poking through. So I'm just gonna kind of just squeeze a bunch on there and then we'll smooth it out with that knife and just make sure it's pretty much covered. This gets a little messy. When your little Forrero Rocher is looking much less like a Forrero Rocher, I'm gonna stick it down on top of that cupcake and I kind of want it off to the side and slightly to the back. Press it in. Perfect. We're gonna make this look like a brain by just using a snap seal bag, or you could use a really fine piping tip. And I'm just gonna paint like little S's or like extended little S's in all different shapes, sizes, and directions, which is gonna turn my Forrero into a delicious frosting covered Dory House brain coral. One brain. Now with these Oreos, I like to use them when they're a little bit soft. So you can leave them out overnight. Otherwise, literally just the amount of time it's gonna take you to get them all organized is gonna make them a little soft anyway. This technique of using Oreos as stabilizers for fondant decorations or cupcake toppers was actually shown to me by a good friend of mine who runs a business called Mallory's Calories. I used to wait ages for my little fondant discs to dry, and you're talking like 12 hours to 24, and she just stuck some stuff on an Oreo and used that as the base. I was like, genius and a time saver and delicious. So I'm gonna use my scissors and I'm just gonna cut down. You can see by having a softened Oreo how easily it cuts. It's not cracking and it's not snapping, it's just cutting nicely down. It seems unusual, but otherwise the Oreo size is just a fraction too big to go on top of this cupcake. I'm gonna cut in just around Dory's underside. I feel like I'm operating on a Finding Dory, kind of hacking Dory up a bit, and then we're eating Dory. Feels like a Halloween episode. We made a brain. Perfect. So I don't even know what shape that is, like some weird, bizarre shape, but that's going to enable us to sort of stand her up a little bit in front of that brain coral. So I'm going to turn my cupcake around so that I can get my positioning just so. And I want to sort of position her just on the right-hand side of my brain coral. Something like that. So she's standing up in the frosting. Then we're going to frost her in. She needs a little bit more water just around the front and the back. Perfect. Now finally I'm going to finish it off with a couple of those edible chocolate rocks and my unmelted candy melts. I just thought they added a bit of color and height. So I just sort of snapped off a couple of sides of them and stuck them in wherever I feel like I want, like a little pop of coral or seaweed, a pop of color in my little underwater cupcake. So we found Dory and we found Nemo, and now we get to eat them both. I hope you guys enjoyed today's Dory and Nemo themed sweet treats. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure you do for 2 new videos every week. And as always, guys, thanks very much for watching.